So welcome, an official welcome as always to everybody who's joining us live. Just delighted to have Jo Bailey with us for our fourth Inside Out transformation. I was going to use somebody else's title of a book then. Inside Out transformation. Yeah, so Jo's one of the contributors to the book. Fabulous chapter. And just for people who will be listening to this, I hope, who have never heard of the 3 principles or I don't know anything about Jo, I'm going to read a little bit of the official bio just to sort of set the scene and set the table and kind of let you know how much experience Jo's had. When I read his bio, it's like, wow, you really have been around the block, Jo, and you really have worked.
I'm just old.
No, you're not old. I wasn't saying that. I just think you've had some fabulous experience and just been in so many different environments, teaching and sharing and working. So Jo's a licensed psychologist and author. We'll get to that bit in a minute. Seminar leader, consultant to organizations, a public speaker, and a psychotherapist. His work has included co-founding the Minneapolis Institute of Mental Health, developing programs for healthcare provider wellness at the University of Minnesota Inner Life of Healers program, and numerous hospitals, including the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, where he ran the Resilient Physician program. He's also worked extensively in treatment centers for addictions. So Jo is the author of 6 books. So I've got a lot to learn from him. We were just talking about that earlier. And he's with over 500,000 in print. I think that's a nice way of saying 500,000 in sales in 26 languages. Wow. And 65 countries. So he's got the best seller. I think it was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, Slowing Down to the Speed of Life with Dr. Richard Carlson. And many people have, it's number 2, was it? Number 2. And his newest book is called Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane, Unlocking Your Resilience in Our Turbulent Times. And if that wasn't enough, Jo also hosts a monthly podcast interviewing 3 principles practitioners about their work, which I have listened to and is very, very good. So welcome, Jo. Thank you so much for being with us. Yeah, it's great to have you here live and with the people and being able to pick your brain or just to unpack some of the things that we've talked about. Pick your heart. That's a really good one. Yeah, pick your heart. Yeah. Oh, I really like that even more. Yeah. Let's go down that road. Let's tickle your heart a little bit. And unpack a little bit of what was shared in the book. And something I'd love to share with everybody is Jo emailed me yesterday, I think. One of his clients, who happens to be the director of coaching for won't name the company just in case for privacy reasons, of quite a well-known corporate, sent some feedback on Jo's chapter in the book. And it's really interesting. I'm probably going to share a little bit of that now and talk about some of the points that came back, because they shared their takeaways and shared some differentiators and some similarities between traditional coaching and what we're calling inside out coaching or 3 principles coaching. And I think that's really what we're up to with this, is to help coaches, to help therapists, to help counsellors, to really help them impact their clients, help their clients in the best way possible. So I think that just take some of these takeaways are really interesting and points that I've seen as I was writing the book and transcribing and all that sort of thing. But the first thing, and I think it links in, I just want to share the quote that you chose, Jo, to put at the top of your chapter. And it actually came from something that you shared. It was when I asked you the question, what's your intention with a client? Are you trying to get them to see anything? So this was your summarized answer, and I love it, and I want to just sort of dive a bit deeper into it, if it's okay. So you said, I'm trying to help them have insight and to appreciate their insights, to help them realize they already have the answers they seek, that the answers are within and they have heard them all their life but just didn't trust them. Now they look back on their life and with hindsight can see all their previous insights. I'm just trying to help them see they have this inner guidance system that's guiding them through life. That's my intention. That's what I'm trying to help them see, that they can trust themselves. It's what I do with practitioners when I'm training them to trust themselves more. There's a lot in that, but I would love for us to, I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on that, if you would.
Yeah, well, it just impacted me hearing that, which is another example when you're speaking to a client or to an audience, and it's not coming from your intellect, your head, what you already know. It's like fresh baked bread. It's hot out of the oven, and it's fresh, it's new, it's relevant, and it's impactful. And so when I'm speaking like I am right now to you, all that are here, my life is my preparation, how I live my life. And the first thing Sydney Banks told me, who was my mentor and teacher for the time I met him in 1980 till he died, I can't imagine what my life would have been like if I had not met Sydney Banks. Because I still can't imagine my life that I have because I met Sydney Banks. It just took all the stress, all of the anxiety, the fear, the self-consciousness, the trying harder out of my life, and replaced it with that faith that I talked about in that quote, that knowing that I have all the answers that I need. Now, I don't always know that. There's times when I doubt that too. I'm human. I get insecure. I have the same old thoughts that Joe Bailey, prior to the principles, had, because there are little tape recordings in there, little memories in my brain. But I now had this litmus test, this Geiger counter, this sensing within me that can smell the difference between something that is not true and something that is true. And what Sid told me and all of us, Christine and Keith and all the original people, was, just get this for yourself. Get this for yourself. And say, yeah, I'll get it for myself so I can help my clients. How do I do this? How do I do this? And that was, and so he would always say, you can only give what you have. You can't give away something you don't know yourself. And you can say the words, but if you're not living it, they'll have no impact, because the feeling behind the words, the knowing behind the words, is the juice. It's the catalyst for change and transformation in your clients. And I heard that and I go, yeah, but what do I do? Here I was trained as a family systems therapist. I was very fortunate to train with Virginia Satir and many other extraordinary therapists, kind of the best of the group in the 70s, and got individual help with them. And they were just amazing teachers. And so I had a lot of knowledge and a lot of information that I had acquired in 10 years prior to meeting Sid. But every time I tried to do it after I met Sid, it just didn't feel right. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was fingernails on the blackboard. It just didn't feel right anymore. And I, out of habit, try to go, well, tell me how your week was, and how's your issue going with this and that, or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Just the typical therapist thing. And it just had a tinny sound to it. It didn't feel right anymore. And I began to call out my habitual counselor, psychologist training, and begin to just speak from the heart and share the little bit that I was knowing, that I had realized. And every time I would slip one of those in, client would kind of be a head cocker, and they go, like a dog, you know, how they cock their head when you're saying something. And they'd go, wow, that's really true, isn't it? I never thought about it that way. That's really true. And I go, what did I say? Because I would, you know, when you're speaking from the heart, it's beyond the intellect. So you often don't even remember what you're saying. It's like you're just, your being is coming out. And so my clients were transforming in front of my eyes. And that's what convinced me that Sydney was onto a paradigm shift in psychology and coaching. That this was a whole new ball game. You can't mix the two. But I tried, you know, because, you know, it was my go-to. It was like a, you know, like I'm left-handed, so it was like writing with my right hand. It felt awkward at first, and I'd want to write with my left hand. But over time, the results just, you know, my clients would sit out in the waiting room, and there was in a counseling center with 40 other counselors, and so all the clients would sit there in the same waiting room. And my clients would come out and they'd be laughing and holding hands, and their spouse, and smiling, and everybody else would come out with tears and makeup running down their face and looking hungover. And they'd sit in the counseling space, the reception area, and they'd say to my clients, what is your counselor telling you? How come you're so happy? And they talk about their insight or whatever. So pretty soon, it was kind of threatening to the other therapists, because a lot of their clients transferred to me. And one of those other therapists was Chris Heath. and so she was kind of a militant feminist therapist, you know. She was just real angry and what are you doing, Joe Bailey? And she said, but she thought it was because I'd fallen in love, which by the way, I fell in love. A lot of you know this story. I fell in love with my wife of 40 years as of 2 weeks ago, Michael. She and I met 4 hours before I met Sid Banks. She came to hear Sid from Texas, and I came from Minnesota. And Keith Blevins and his wife Valda were kind of trying to hook us up. It was a matchmaking thing. And they didn't need to do much because it was love at first sight. So I'm falling in love. And at the same time, I'm meeting Sid Banks, and I don't know what's hit me, but I'm sure the stars aligned some great constellation that day, because it was a super duper 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 day. And so Chris would look at me and she'd say, I want to meet a guy. Where did you go to that conference? You know, and she was all about trying to find a guy. She thought it was about that's why I was so different, that I was in love, which I was in love, just in the early stages of falling in love. But I was beginning to emanate a positive feeling instead of this cloud of problems and anxieties and depression and burnout. I was showing up as Joe Bailey, me. And so Sid was right. You know, it was by my presence and my own insights that by osmosis, my clients would be touched by that, interested, curious, want to know more, and were inspired by it. So that's why Sid said, this is a done deal, because as you change and your clients change and everybody you touch changes, they affect 10 other people, and those 10 affect 10 others. And it's just evolving across the planet. The last conference, I don't know how many countries were there, but people from every religion, nationality, country in the world, it seemed, were there. And this all started with one man's insight off a little island off British Columbia. How the heck did that happen? Sid predicted it all the moments after his insight. He said this will go all over the world, be taught in universities, books will be written, people will come here to learn from me, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, scientists. It all happened. That's that jumping the boundaries of time, space, and matter. That's what that's about. He could see the evolution from that insight. I'm giving you a long answer to that question, I know.
And that's absolutely the way it always goes, and it's absolutely fine, because you've answered probably 3 questions that I had. So that's brilliant, 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 lovely. Inside Out Transformation, that's the name of the book, my book. And the piece of feedback, just because it's the first takeaway that's on this list from the feedback that you had from your chapter is, it's an inside out job. Could you speak to what that means? What does it mean, inside out job?
Well, our experience of reality comes from our use of mind, thought, consciousness, basically. That it comes, so all of you sitting here listening to this conversation right now are having your own unique interpretation, experience, level of impact from what I'm saying, based on your thinking in the moment, your presence. So if you're, God, where'd you get that shirt? I don't like that shirt. It doesn't look good with his hair. And, I didn't know. I've never seen Joe speak. Yeah, I mean, you can be thinking about something else and you'd have that experience, or you could be thinking about something in your personal life. And while you're thinking about that, you're not here. You're there. So wherever your thoughts go is where your experience goes. It's an inside out creation. So there is a physical reality. We are separate beings. We all live in a universe of form. We're in a world of form, but how we each uniquely experience that comes from the inside out. So the model of coaching, based on the principles, is to educate people about how the power we have as human beings to create our own unique experience, the capacity to be aware that we're creating our own experience, whether it's from old habits of thinking, insecurity, or coming from wisdom in the moment, insight. All wisdom is insight in the moment. So when you're coming from insight, it feels really different. Quality of the feeling, quality of the experience is very different than when you're coming from your habit of thinking. And I, all day long, I go in and out of habitual thinking and inspiration. It's like breathing in and breathing out. It's just, you do it. But when you have an understanding, a couple of things happen. One, you don't take your own thinking so personally. Just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean it's true. Just because I'm thinking it and it's creating a bad feeling doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, or I'm stupid, or that I don't know the principles good enough. It just means you're having an inside out experience. And when you can see that from a more neutral, objective view, it just passes through. The thought just passes through. Because thought is, and I heard Hannah Studley talk about thought in her presentation about special effects and her work in Hollywood and how the mind creates pain and all these other, it was a beautiful thing. And she just talked about that thought is in a river of consciousness. It's always a stream of thought. And so whatever thought you're having in the moment, you experience through the senses as a perceptual, emotional, sensorial experience. But if you're creating an experience that's painful or creates insecurity or creates self-doubt, and you notice that because you are aware, you're conscious, and you see it as a thought, it just moves past. You don't have to do anything other than be aware of it. If you're clutching your fist and you don't, because you're anxious, and all of a sudden you're, oh my God, my hands are so tight, they just relax. You don't have to do anything. It's just what you're not doing, that your hands naturally relax when you quit tensing them, because tensing them is abnormal. It's not natural. It doesn't feel good. Or your breath, or your shoulders, or your headache, So when you notice that with an understanding of the inside-out nature of experience, you're designed perfectly to know how to relax. It's inborn in you. It's innate. And so you're not learning anything with the principles. You're remembering what's already baked into you from your soul. Your soul meaning your pre-body consciousness. The soul is just who you are before you entered this body. And then when you die, that's the soul. That's the way I see it. It continues on. So your essence that draws together all these cells and things to create a body is in your soul, is in that. Your consciousness is in that. God, I've never talked about it this way before. Interesting. That's something new for me too. But I don't know why I'm saying that, but I think that's true. It feels like there's a part of us that's permanent and another part of us that's transitory. It's a temporary vessel for our spirit, our essence, our true self. The part of us that's indestructible, that was here before we came here and will be here after we leave. So that, whatever that is, and I've talked to a lot of people with near-death experiences, and they talk about that. God, when I had that death experience, it was like I felt so at peace. I had a peace that I've never, ever experienced before. It was so beautiful. I no longer fear death. And they also were totally aware that they were in a body, on an operating table, and someone was trying to bring them back. So whatever that is, soul, essence, true self, that's what we're talking to as coaches. We're talking to that. We're getting people to trust that. That is their guidance system. That is their GPS in life. And so when you teach them that, you guide them to that through your own example, through your stories, through the way that each of you are going to talk about this in a different way than Joe Bailey talks about it, because you're just being you and I'm just being me. But when it comes out through you, it will wake up that awareness or that consciousness in the client. That's the goal. The goal of counseling is to wake up the client to their own essence, to their own innate mental health, to their own, whatever word you want to put on it, to their own source of experience. Then when they leave you, I get letters all the time from clients. God, what I learned from you 20 years ago, it still has helped change my life, and go on. So once they catch the ball, they're going to take it into their life, and it's going to continue to grow and evolve on its own without you. So you don't have to have your clients dependent on you for their whole life. Once they catch the ball, once they have an understanding, they may need to come back periodically because they get stuck or whatever, but it becomes more of a reminding them of what they already know rather than starting from scratch.
Beautiful. I think that was on my list of questions as well, but you've just covered it so beautifully. It's like you read my mind. What I love is when you said, I've never spoke about it like this before, and I just love that we can do that when we're connected, I guess, connected to wisdom and new and fresh. And that's what you were speaking to earlier, wasn't it? That it's where we're coming from. People feel that's how people are impacted. They're impacted by where we're coming from, not by the words that are coming out of our mouth that we've learned somewhere else, but the place that it's coming from before form. It's freshly being created in the moment. Yeah.
And just to underline that too, and when you're speaking from that place, like when I'm doing this or when I'm doing my work, it is so uplifting when you're speaking from that it's like, my friends are all retired and they say, God, Joe, come on, play with us. Why are you retired? I love my work too much. I can't, I'm kind of doing a lot more traveling and fun things. And my wife and I are getting ready to go out for a month in our new RV, and we're going to go out west and see all our buddies in Seattle and Salt Spring, and go fly fishing in Utah and do all kinds of fun stuff. But I'm still going to probably do coaching sessions along the way because I love it. I love it. It's so rewarding. And I hear things coming out of my mouth that help me more than helps the client some days. You know what I mean?
You're yes, muted. Absolutely. Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Sometimes it's when you're working with clients, you feel like, maybe I should be paying you. It's like, it's like, yeah, insights galore sometimes in sessions. It's, wow, I haven't seen that before. Nice. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this, isn't it? Absolute beauty of this style of coaching, mentoring, working with people, working with clients. In fact, that brings me to one of the things that I have written down here from in the book. You talked about how your clients will teach you. So I think when I was reading it through earlier today, I thought, I bet for some people that would be really reassuring. But for somebody who's new, that might be a little vague. And they might be like, how does that happen then? How do you know? You're supposed to be the expert, right? When you're working with clients. How is it that clients can teach you?
Well, it's a great question. In many ways, when your client is stuck and not responding, that can help you go deeper. So like I'm trying to get through to someone and it's not connecting. It kind of keeps my knife sharp, because I have to go back to the drawing boards. I can't just say something out of habit or previous insights. It's like, that's interesting. I wonder why this person isn't responding. And so their resistance or their blocking makes me go deeper. So that's one way. So I often say I like continuing to do coaching and counseling because it keeps my knife sharp, like a stone rubbing up against it. It keeps me humble. It keeps me honest, because right there on the front, in the trenches, on the front line, working with a heroin addict or a person who's been sexually abused or traumatized, and they're like raw, it brings out all of your you have to go beyond what you already know. And so it keeps you going deeper. So that's the part of my payment for my work is that I keep learning more. But I also, as I'm talking, I'll say things like I just did a minute ago. I've never said it that way before. So I'm learning from my own wisdom as I'm speaking the wisdom. It's weird, isn't it? It's amazing that you can learn from your own words coming out of your mouth that you don't even know what you're saying. Like I listened to my talk that I gave at the conference, and because a couple people called and said, God, Joe, that's the best talk you've ever given, blah, blah. I got all this, I thought you had to go listen to it. And I'm listening to it like I'm listening to somebody else talking, and I'm learning from it. It's wonderfully weird.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It really is. I mean, I think that says also, that speaks to listening. Like the way we listen, and I think I'd love you to share a little bit more, because that's talked about in the book as well, and in the feedback that you got about deep listening. And I think you talked about something like X-ray vision as well. Like, I have to have X-ray vision for my clients and listen past their what their presenting symptoms are and past. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the listening, because I think when we listen, when we hear something fresh and new, it's my opinion, is it's because of our listening. We're not, like, I know when I see myself on video, I've got a lot of thinking about the way I look. And if I listen to that, I'm listening, oh my God, look at that hair, look at that, this and that and the other, like you were saying earlier on, that other people might be doing. But when I drop all that and I just relax and stop, and it can happen at the beginning of these calls as well, I get in my head about this, that, and the other, but when I start relaxing, my listening is so much better. I'm actually present with you, and I'm hearing, and I'm taking in, and I can respond in real time without having a bunch of things in my head about what shall I say next, what shall I say next, and it's as you said earlier on, it's a whole different experience. It really is. It's uplifting versus heavy. So yeah, would you speak a little bit about listening?
Yeah, listening is not a doing, it's a being. So when I'm listening, I'm present with my client. I'm just really interested in what they're saying. I kind of drop into their world. And when I'm listening, not analyzing what they're saying or processing it or rehearsing what I'm going to say next, or interpreting or associating it with another client similar to them, or all of that stuff that can be kind of going on over here. But when I come back to just listening, first thing that happens is most people have never been listened to that way. And it feels really good when someone really listens to you. You feel respected. You feel heard. You feel understood. So it's in and of itself, if you say nothing, just listening to someone is healing for the client in and of itself. Because when you're really listening to someone and you're not interrupting them and you're not judging them, and you're just, and they're just in a flow, they start to get in a flow themselves, and they'll start hearing themselves. And another head cocker, like, wow, I can't believe I'm still thinking that. That happened 20 years ago. That's kind of ridiculous that I'm still thinking about that, isn't it? And maybe I don't need to do that. So they'll start having their own insights, and you haven't said a word, because you're a sounding board, in a sense. You're giving them room to hear their own thoughts. So that's one plus for deep listening. It builds rapport. It builds trust. It creates an atmosphere where clients can hear their own thinking and get reflective and start to self-correct. Like, well, that's a really stupid thing that I've just said. I don't really believe that. that's not really true. Like, I'll never forget Mavis Karn, a colleague of mine here in Minnesota. She worked in the juvenile prison, and she was working with these tough gang kids from Chicago. And so she was sitting out in the lawn with this one big kid, big African American kid, and she's just listening to him under this tree, and he's just going on and on and on and on. And after a while, he says, "Stop it! Just stop it! What do you stop that?" And she says, "Stop what? Stop listening to me like that." Well, why? Well, I feel like when you listen to me like that, I feel like I have to tell the truth. I can't do my shtick. I can't do my schmooze. I can't bullshit you. I just can't do it. It's that he was upset, but he liked it. So there's a self-correction built into it when you deeply listen, but also as a coach, counselor, psychologist, when I don't know how to help someone until I diagnose them, in the sense of get to know them, not label them, not in a psychiatric way, but get to understand their world and how they see things. And really, if I really listen deeply to my clients, it will trigger wisdom from my own source of insight, and an intervention, a question, a comment, a story will just pop out of me in response to that deep listening. So the deep listening is like, let's say you're an architect and you're told you want to build a building on this piece of land. The first thing is you have to get to know the land to know what kind of a building to build and how it's going to fit and how deep it has to go. And if you don't do that, the building's going to topple over. You have to get to know the lay of the land to build the building. And the same thing with the client. You have to get to know their world before you can see how to, where the door is open. Like when I'm working with alcoholics, they never want to talk about their drinking, but they might want to talk about their boss or their spouse, or I'll just find out where's the door open and go in there. That's where there's no resistance. You start talking about the thing that they're most insecure about, you'll get a lot of resistance, and they won't be in a state of mind to heal, to have insight. So your deep listening helps create a safe, warm, good rapport, healing environment where you really get to know them and they begin to trust you because they feel heard. And so it creates, it's like when I was at Mayo Clinic, I worked with the heart transplant department. And I was working with the top heart transplant guy in the world. This guy was just an amazing doctor. So he says, "Well, you want to go on rounds with me?" I said, "Sure." And so I spent a day with him, going, meeting all of his patients that he had given new hearts to, and ones that were waiting for a heart. And all of a sudden his beeper goes off and he says, "Joe, do you want to scrub up and be part of a heart transplant surgery?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" "Yes." Like, absolutely. Wow. And so it took like an hour. First of all, the person that died, they had to send their Learjet to New Mexico, get the heart, put it on ice, fly it to Phoenix, get the heart, bring it to the Mayo Clinic. And in the meantime, we're scrubbing up, getting the room ready, and getting the patient ready who needs the heart. It was a little immigrant from Burma, a refugee from Burma, a 35-year-old guy who he couldn't live without a new heart. So the kid that died was a drug addict, overdosed in New Mexico. But it was a good match, blood-wise and everything, for this guy. So anyway, so we spent like an hour scrubbing up, gowning up, and I said, wow, this is it's like you took 10 minutes to wash your hands and your arms. I just thought, I just do this and I'm done. Oh no, you scrub with a brush and under the fingernails, and it's very thorough. And he says, if you don't do that, you can kill the patient with contamination with your germs. So sterile, everything is sterile in here. Every instrument, everything in here is completely sterilized. That's prep. So that preparation is like your state of mind before you see the client. That you're listening, you're quiet, you're in a receptive mode, and then once you have that, you can do your work. You can, because you have trust, you have rapport, you have insights that are relevant to that person. That have you ever thought about it this way? Or you educate them about the nature of experience. How it comes from thought in the moment, and our feelings are connected. So there's some education. There's a lot of stories told to flesh it out, see what it looks like when you have an insight. So it's a psychoeducational model of therapy and coaching. But that doesn't, like if I'm working with a drug addict or an alcoholic, I don't just start out by teaching them the principles. I send them to the medical unit and get their body detox from cocaine or whatever they're on, get them healthy, get them sleeping again, get their diet balanced, get their body to a point where they can actually hear you because they're not miserable and going through withdrawal. So you meet people where they're at. If you're working with a CEO of a big corporation, it's a whole different thing. You got to get past the ego and that this is an important person and meet him as a human being. So every person is different. Every situation is unique. And so you can't go by any blueprint from the past. You have to go with wisdom in the moment. And I don't know if I've even come close to answering your question. I'm just rambling on here.
I think it all comes back to the initial question was about deep listening, but about the listening to the client. But as you've just rounded off there, meeting clients where they are is about listening, right? I mean, it's all about listening to where they're at and picking up.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the time and realize I haven't opened up for questions yet. We've got 15 minutes left, so I'd love to do that. I don't know where the time's gone.
I am a blabbermouth at times. I'm sorry.
It's gorgeous, Joe. It's gorgeous. And is there anybody who has a question? Please feel free to go to the reactions button and raise your digital hand, and then you can ask a question or make a comment.
Questions in the chat room here too.
I don't think there are questions in there at the moment. Okay, Fatima, would you like to unmute and ask Joe something?
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask you something. I just finished participating in the 3P UK conference.
Yes.
And there was one of the speakers. Her name is, I think, Elizabeth Lovius.
Okay.
Or Luvius. And she said something that I wanted your point of view on. She said that all of us is welcome. All of us, like I mean, what she specifically said is this: all of you is wanted, all of you is needed, and all of you is okay. So, I wanted to get your feedback on that sentence. I mean, I just wanted to get your feedback. What does she mean by all of us is okay, all of us is needed? Is it a way of accepting all our character fault, the anger, what we so-called the negative trait of our character. This is number one. And number two, why is it important to accept all of us?
Well, I can answer that question in a couple of different ways. Number one is that, fundamentally, even though we're all different, we all work the same. We all create experience from the same three principles, basically. So that's the common denominator of all of humanity, regardless of your culture, your religion, your sex, your sexual orientation, your diagnoses, your traumas, your history. We all create experience the same way. And because of that, we understand all of you. That was, no one is beyond understanding. Everyone is capable of insight. Everyone is born with this soul essence, this purity of spirit. We call it resilience. We call it your innate mental health. Those different words in different religions. It's the pure soul, pure essence. So even though we've gone through lots of trauma or pain or conditioning habits in our life, underneath all of that, we're all the same. And we're all needed in the sense, and that's the second part of this. We're all needed and we're all welcome because when anyone changes, it affects the whole. When anyone transforms, it increases the possibility for more people to transform. Anytime you change and discover who you are already, you can't help but help other people because of your presence. So all are needed. In other words, we welcome everybody. I've traveled to India, I've traveled to Africa, I've traveled to all over the planet teaching these principles in different cultures, different religions. And everybody goes, oh, that sounds just like Buddhism. That just sounds like Islam. That sounds just like my fundamentalist Christian beliefs. And so people relate it to something in their life where they had that experience. And the three principles to me is it unifies the religions, it unifies the cultures, it unifies humanity in a way that shows our common denominator, our common principles of the way we create the human experience. And with that understanding, we create bridges between differences. And when you do that, you end the conflicts, you end the wars, you end the killing, you end the jealousy, you end the greed. That all the problems that face humanity are all based on an innocent misunderstanding of the use of mind. That's why I wrote my book. I know that if what the planet needs in this very turbulent time we're in, we need a shift in consciousness. The shift in consciousness will bring peace to our world, to our communities, to our homes, to our marriages, to our relationships with our children. That's the promise that I spoke about at the conference. That's the hope that the principles bring, is that there's a neutral way that we can all come together, regardless of our differences. So I don't know if that answered your lovely question, but I hope it did.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And it looks like that beautiful wreath you have there, made of, looks like shells and different things. Looks like an Arabic. Is that Arabic?
Yes, it is Arabic.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for questions and answers, beautifully answered. It was pointed out to me in a message. I wasn't at the conference, I couldn't be there this year, but that statement by Elizabeth was actually in the context of neurodiversity, so that would probably give a bit more context. Is there anybody else who would like to ask Jo a question? Don't be shy. This is your opportunity to ask something.
Any questions, welcome.
Yeah.
Even terrible questions are welcome.
Okay, Peter, go
Pete.
for it.
Oh, Pete. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Joe. Joe, I was wondering if you could tell us, how do you settle yourself down before you speak to a client? How do you make sure you're in that quiet space yourself?
I put my intention on helping them rather than how I'm doing. The focus is on them rather than how am I doing? How am I going to do this? You know, when my focus is on how I'm doing, I get insecure. And I block my own listening ability, and I also block my own insight. And over the course of my life, since I've met Sid and learned the principles, my confidence in that, knowing that I have no idea what I'm going to say, but I know I will know what to say when I'm there. The more deeply I know that, and Pete, it's been a kind of an uphill road for me, or a downhill, whichever way it is, because I wasn't that way in the beginning. I was very insecure about giving a talk, and God, who am I to talk about the principles, and do I know enough, or God, I still have problems in my life. I can't. I'm not good enough yet to do this. But the more I settled in and just quit paying attention to all those thoughts and just had faith in that I will know when I get there. I don't know what I'll say. I don't know what I'll know, but I know. But also when I'm in that calm knowing prior to a talk or to a session, it's interesting. I'll get all these insights bubbling up. You know how that is, Pete, for you, when all of a sudden all of a sudden this thought will come and that thought and that memory, it's like, it's just percolating. It's like a percolating. So my preparation is to just get into that space where I'm quiet and I don't have many thoughts about what I'm going to say. It's almost out of the state of no thought that true thought emerges. Knowing thought, wise thoughts. A guest that I had on my podcast a couple of times ago, Joseph Nigel, wrote a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think, and the subtitle was Thought, the Beginning and the End of All Suffering. And he talks in his book about the state of no thought. Sid talked about the state of no thought a lot. So that state of no thought is when your mind is just calm, quiet. That's where real connection is. That's where real mental health is. That's where real healing is. Everything happens from there. And the more that, it's just, you already trusted a lot, Pete. And the more experience you have with every time you come from there and it goes, wow, that was a freaking miracle. And you go, where did that come from? It's like you end up, trust that. Yeah. All that stuff you thought you were going to say, forget that. Just trust that. So you learn as you go to, that really works. That really does work. And so it kind of builds on itself. Mick, you have a question.
Well, can I just interfere and say, I'm going to hash it up. Is it Spiro or Spiro? unmute
Oh,
yourself.
sorry.
Rachel, they were first.
I
I'll just
didn't
put
see him.
the hand up first.
yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's Spiro. It's okay.
Hi, Spiro.
You know, it's absolutely beautiful to be part of this and to hear you. And if it wasn't for Annika sending me the connection last week, I wouldn't have even known that this group exists. And I feel that things come when they have to come, you know, for health, for life. And as you were talking, I was realizing I wasn't breathing. I wasn't paying it. I was like, finally, when you're 20 minutes into your presentation, a discussion, a sharing, I was like, I wasn't breathing. And then I just relaxing and I started, you know, yawning and dozing off. But tying into sort of what Pete said, I feel like, is there another book I have to read? Is there another seminar I have to go to? Or in your experience, the client, the person, it just, it happens, you know, versus, you know, I feel sometimes like I'm trying, like,
Yeah.
you know, like my understanding is, you're right. When I'm present with someone and listening to someone and having my own awarenesses, it's like, wow, it's another layer, like that onion. There is no end to that onion. But in your like in your life experiences, do you feel like it finds you or you go looking for it? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it's more remembering than learning.
Hmm.
You know, I think when you were a little boy, you knew a lot just because you were an innocent child and you learned so much as a young child with that curiosity and joy of life. And then it got covered up, just like with me, with a lot of insecurity and self-consciousness and comparing myself to other people and a lot of thinking blah, 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 in my head. And so it's really remembering who you are and coming from that. It's almost like we're returning from where we came. Instead of trying to create something from the outside in, trying to create something. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue a teacher or a counselor or a coach or profit by reading Sid's books or listening to his videos or going to conferences or, you know, learning everything you can from everybody. But not just people with the three principles. You can learn from you can hear wisdom from the grocery store clerk. You don't have to listen to me. It's everywhere. When you have ears for it, you'll hear it everywhere. So it's really it's kind of an open, you go through life with an open mind and an open heart and a willingness to be on a constant bus stop of insight. The right person, the right situation, the right client will be there to teach you the next thing you need to see. It's very mystical. It's a very mystical. I can't tell you how many coincidences have happened in my life that are just like kind of woo-woo, spooky. It's just so. But now it's normal to me, just like that's the way it works. You know, when you're open, beautiful things just fall in your lap. When I was first learning, like where you're at, Spiral, you know, I was just, oh, please tell me what to do. How do I do this? You know, and they would say, just get this for yourself, Joe. Catch the ball before you run with it. You know, all these little things they'd say. And but it took a while for my mind to settle down enough to really hear that. And now all I want to do is remind you and everybody else about that, because everybody reminded me, and then I finally got it. I was like, oh, shit, that's true. Don't quote me on that. Take that part out.
Thank you. Yeah, because, you know, when having met Sid in Washington years and years ago,
Well, you
and
did.
I remember seeing him and I said, I will get to meet him one day. And 2 days later, I got a phone call from Judy Sedgman, said,
You're muted.
oh, there we go. Am I back?
Yeah.
He personally reached out to someone who he knew sitting next to me to tell me come to Salt Spring Island. And I got to spend 3 days with him.
Wow.
And it was an experience. And like you said, it's like, it happened, you know, and I really appreciate what you said. You're right. It's like forcing things to happen. It blocks it.
Yeah. But that's our culture. You know, we're always, you know, rugged individuals, make things happen, you know, prove yourself, you know, that's our kind of our modus operandi, but it just doesn't work with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Less is more.
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you, Spiro. Thank you, Joe. Mick's put his hand down. I was just going to say, do you want to stay? Can we stay on for?
Mick,
Are you
did
able
you
to?
want to ask a question?
If you're okay to go over a minute.
I'm cool.
Yeah, we can go over for 5 minutes or so. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Joe.
You're still. I'm sorry, Sheila. I'm just minding your business, not mine.
This is not really it's not really a question. It's partly for Sheila as well. My experience of the book, I haven't got very far with the book, but I've just read your chapter, Joe. And each chapter I read, I feel like I've been in exactly that place you're talking about, Joe, of just being open to, you know, listening to these people that I've listened to directly, or at least online, and just the words, you know, just hit me. And somewhere in the chapter there will be, I see something new somewhere. And I just love the fact that that's happening. You know, I have no expectation chapter by chapter. And yet something is happening that's just completely new. And the bit with your chapter, Joe, was when Sheila asked you, what are the 3 principles? And you open up talking about mind. And I was just, you know, I was reading these words that I've heard 100 times, 1,000 times maybe, you know, mind is the energy of all things and blah, blah, blah. And there was just a point where, and then you said, Sid talked about original thought. And it just hit me. It just really hit me that exactly what I think it was, I can't remember if it was to Peter or Spiro, who was just talking about going back to the original us. And that's, you know, what that very simple introduction to mind did to me. It just took me back to, you know, how can fresh thought come from anywhere else? And, you know, it's just, yeah. And it just, what it did in the moment that I saw, you know, in reading that and seeing that, I just thought, God, I've got so much intellect that is just noise. It's just noise. And why would I choose that? You know, why would I choose that noise when there's that potential? Yeah.
Well, it's innocent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Me too. You know, I could say me too.
Yeah.
On that. You know, I'm often lost in thought, and you know, it's every now and then I drop into this incredibly deep well of mind. but more and more, and I just have more respect for it. And the more respect you have for it, the more it grows. It's like it's an infinitely deep well, but sometimes you just have a tiny little pump to draw a few drops out, and then as you get a bigger pump, you get a hose, and then it's a blast. It gets bigger with your openness and your knowing and your faith and your willingness to not know. And the more you are willing to not know, the more you know. It's the great paradox.
Thank you.
I don't know what I just said, but anyway, it sounded good. Anyway, end with that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mick,
Yeah.
for
Thanks,
sharing
Mick.
that.
Good to see you again, Mick.
Yeah, that's really
Great to
Carol,
see
I don't know if I've ever met you before, but I must have somewhere along the line.
Maybe that or Pittsburgh, maybe.
No,
I was,
never been to Pittsburgh.
West Virginia with Mr. Pettit or Judy Sedgman or.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, Sheila, good luck with this book. I just hope it gets out to the coaching world and helps so many people. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you. I must read out. There's a couple of comments here, but I just want somebody's typed into the chat. Joe, you are so easy to listen to, and you come across as so genuine and self-effacing. It's like your essence is all laid out on a plate. It's very refreshing. And I echo all those words. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe, for being with us.
I'll try to be like that much more often.
You're always like that. If people want to get in touch with you, I know you've got a website, joebailey&associates.com. Is that the place for people to go if they would like to reach out and connect?
Yeah, I have lots of free materials there, videos, articles, things there that people can watch or listen to, my podcasts and talks and different things, and I have a YouTube channel, all that. So there's so much information out there. It's ridiculous.
It's lots and lots to listen to and keep us busy. I know I haven't got through all your podcasts. There's lots of them, and of course the 6 books. So I haven't got through all of those yet. But thank you again, Joe, for taking time out to be with us today and for being part of the book. Absolute pleasure. And I know it's going to go far and wide. And as Mick so lovely said at the end,
let me know what I can do to
people.
help you. Let me know what I can do to help you get it out there.
Such a kind man. Lovely. And thank you everybody for being with us, and see you next week. I actually can't. Oh yes, I do. I was going to say can't remember. Dr. Bill Pettit will be in the house next week. So yes, so more, it never ends. It's not like we've got lots to look forward to too. Thank you everybody. Take care and see you soon. Bye. Bye-bye. Everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.